If you thought Spider-Man Brand New Day was a devastating emotional roller coaster, you are not ready for the sheer psychological horror of what comes next. Now, if you're just joining us for this chapter of our ultimate MCU Spider-Man trilogy, welcome to the dark side. Because to understand why Peter Parker is starting this next phase completely, we have to look at the devastating fallout of movie 5. Alchemex has officially stepped out of the shadows, targeting underprivileged blocks in New York City for their twisted genetic experiments. And to keep Spider-Man completely distracted, they took Peter's best friend, Ned Leeds, chemically amplified his buried toxic resentment over his wiped memories, and turned him into a weaponized, mind-controlled hobgoblin. The resulting rooftop brawl didn't just smash their brotherhood to pieces, it left Peter emotionally isolated and physically compromised, with his powers actively glitching out on him. And while Peter was carrying the suffocating guilt of his broken promises, Alchemex was already prepping their next moves, greenlighting this monstrous project Rhino and securing a highly volatile, pitch-black, amorphous alien organism. Which brings us directly to movie 6. Peter Parker has hit an absolute wall. Ever since the events of the last movie, his powers have been completely fluctuating. His wall crawling cuts out entirely. His web swinging is dangerously unstable, and he's constantly moving around looking sore and physically broken. He feels responsible for protecting New York, but his body is failing him. Trying to quite literally drink his own sorrows away, a plainclothes Peter Parker walks into a familiar local dive bar. He asks the bartender for a drink, completely unaware of who she is. But before he can even take a sip, a massive, burly guy steps up aggressively and puts his hands on the bartender. Peter, being the hero he is, he steps in. "Hey man, leave her alone. She's just trying to do her job." The big guy turns on to Peter, shoving his hand onto his shoulder. And right here, you can physically see Peter scrunch up in agony. The guy touched a massive, raw, sore spot from his failing powers. Peter is too physically weak to handle it. But before the guy can do anything else, the bartender grabs the guy by his arm, twists it completely back, and effortlessly manhandles him. She looks him in the eyes and said, "I believe you owe this young man an apology." The guy bails, completely humiliated. Peter looks at her stunned and says, "Thanks for the save. I'm Peter, by the way, Peter Parker." She smiles and replies, "How you doing, Peter? I'm Felicia. Felicia Hardy." Now, yes, it's Felicia Hardy. Let's move on with the story, shall we? There is no rest for Spider-Man. While resting his aching body, or at least trying to, Peter listens to his police radio tech, tracking a massive crisis breaking downtown. The news reports that Alchemex's high-tech corporate enforcers are heavily engaged, trying to contain a massive, destructive force tearing through the city streets, the Rhino. Believing this is just a pure rescue op, Peter forces his broken body back into the costume and swings into action. Unbeknownst to him, it's a total trap. The crisis is a calculated ploy by none other than Alchemex themselves, something Peter won't unfortunately discover until much later. Before he can even comprehend the scale of this new threat, his powers start to regress even further, and it hits him at an absolute worst second. His strength gives out, his ability glitches, and Rhino absolutely pummels an already weakened Spider-Man, leaving him unconscious and bleeding out in a dark alley. He is left for dead, and during the chaos, one of his web shooters is just completely shattered and left behind in the dirt. Now we can have Felicia back in here. She finds this bloodied Spider-Man in the same alley, pulls off his mask, and is shocked to see this sore kid from the bar that she works at. She smuggles him back to her apartment and tenderly patches up his wounds. When Peter finally wakes up, they share an incredibly deep, intimate scene. Peter opens up about his Aunt May, her ultimate sacrifice, and the heavy burden of why he wears the mask. Felicia listens, connecting with him on a profound level, and shares her own traumatic past. She lets him know that her father, Walter Hardy, a master cat burglar, who was finally caught, imprisoned, and forced to retire, completely fracturing her family. She describes how that betrayal and the following fallout gave her a rebellious, guarded nature, explaining why she is the way she is. She looks at his broken body and says, "You need a partner out there, Peter. Someone to watch your back." Peter just gives a soft, tired laugh, but the emotional connection is there. You can visibly see the connection build up to where they're catching feelings for each other. Now, this movie is our first look at Felicia in the MCU, but based on her connection to Peter, should we officially establish that she is already operating as the Black Cat, or should this traumatic night trigger that final push that she needs to go into that direction? Let me know right now in the comments. Now, despite his physical limitations, Peter forces himself back onto the streets. He arrives just in time to intercept a group of high-tech Alchemex soldiers trying to abduct a kid in Brooklyn, Miles Morales. Spider-Man fights them off, but the Alchemex van manages to speed off into the night. Peter, visibly heavily out of breath, turns his focus entirely back to Miles, making sure that he's okay. Miles looks at him and says, "Yeah, I'm good, but those guys, Alchemex, they're using those vans to kidnap people all over my neighborhood. They took my friend Finn's older brother." More intel that goes back to Alchemex. Spider-Man tells Miles that he understands and to stay put while he tracks the van straight back to the main Alchemex facility. However, Miles refuses to sit on the sidelines and sneaks into the building right behind him. Peter infiltrates the facility first, moving through the deep corporate offices and labs while Miles is just trailing silently behind him out of sight. Peter stumbles into a primary research lab filled with secured case files. As he's digging through the data, the horrifying truth behind the neighborhood kidnappings is finally exposed. Alchemex has been harboring an exotic alien entity that possesses immense regenerative healing capability. They've been abducting human test subjects, trying to harvest the creature's unique enzymes and DNA to forcibly heal humans. Peter scans the patient logs and freezes when he sees two specific names that stick out to him on a personal level: Martin Lee, the head of the Feast facility, and Rick Mason, Miles' friend's older brother. Now determined to find this alien entity, Peter moves to the back of the lab and opens a secure, safe-sized vault door. The second the seal breaks, his spider sense goes absolutely haywire, ringing in a deafening, panicked red alert. Inside the safe, the contained symbiote violently shatters its glass housing and launches itself straight at Peter, latching onto his body. Watching his hero get violently overtaken by the black sludge, a terrified Miles panics. He steps back blindly, slamming straight into an experimental containment casing behind him. The impact cracks the glass and Spider 42 slips out, latching onto his clothing completely undetected. As Spider-Man falls to his knees, screaming and desperately trying to fight off the suit's neural takeover, Miles flees the room. Sprinting down the corridor, he passes a heavy lab door and he hears a man strapped into a medical chair frantically crying for help. Miles stops dead in his tracks. He looks back at the horrific room that he just came from, terrified, but then looks through the glass door of the man strapped down. He immediately recognizes a familiar, beloved face from his own neighborhood, Martin Lee. Shaking off his fear, Miles bursts into the room and frantically starts unstrapping him. As his hands fly across the restraints, Miles asks him, "Mr. Lee, where's Rick? Where's Finn's brother?" Mr. Lee looks at him with hollow eyes and whispers he didn't make it. Swallowing that heartbreak, Miles finishes releasing him and safely escorts a weakened Martin Lee out of the building. Meanwhile, back at the vault room, Peter's mind completely breaks under the strain of the alien host's bond. He suffers a massive violent blackout. Now I want you guys to keep in mind that throughout this chapter, this is just as much as a dark twist story for Peter Parker as it is a foundational origin story for Miles Morales. Now, right after the suit takes over and Peter blacks out, he experiences a terrifying nightmare sequence. This is a massive visual homage to the iconic 1990s Spider-Man animated series, a trippy, surreal dreamscape where the classic red and blue suit and the monstrous Venom symbiote are physically tearing at each other, violently fighting over the control of his soul. He wakes up gasping in the fully established black suit, realizing the nightmare was real, but all of his physical regression is gone. He feels unstoppable. Now, over the course of the next 3 to 5 days, the symbiote completely warps Peter's psyche. His methods become hyper aggressive. He isn't just stopping low-level criminals, he's brutalizing them. Even worse, he becomes cold, arrogant, and obnoxious to the very citizens he swore to protect, a community that he built that trust with. During a street confrontation, everyday New Yorkers actively step back, horrified by his actions. Someone starts to yell out, "Hey man, you're supposed to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man." This isn't friendly. Peter glares at the crowd, stepping toward them aggressively, and barks back. "You think this job is easy? You think keeping all of you little people safe is easy?" Miles steps up out of the crowd, completely stunned. "Spider-Man, what's wrong with you? This isn't you. Are you okay?" Peter turns his gaze to the kid, staring him down through the cold, dark lenses of that black suit, and coldly spits out, "You don't know who I am. You think you could do better than me? Do you think you can be a better Spider-Man than me? Because I would love to see you try." And with that, he swings away, leaving his neighborhood behind. Right after this heavy fracture, the payoff hits. The stowaway Spider-42 finally bites Miles, triggering his transformation. Over the next couple days while Peter is lost in his darkness, Miles is actively discovering and developing his new abilities. Down in the streets, Miles and Genki locate that shattered web shooter left behind by Peter in the alley the very first night with Rhino. Genki uses his tech skills to reverse engineer and downscale the device, modifying it to perfectly fit Miles' wrist. While Miles is unlocking his powers, Peter's dark obsession with Alchemex reaches its boiling point. He spots another Alchemex van approaching the neighborhood, exactly like the ones that almost took Miles. Blinded by his aggression, Peter intercepts the van with terrifying violence. He rips the door off of its hinges, drags the driver out, and aggressively interrogates him, shaking him over the edge of a building. Peter's roaring, demanding to know why they're kidnapping people and what the hell Rhino has to do with Alchemex. The man is terrified for his life, so he spills everything. Rhino works for Alchemex. The crisis downtown and all of the trouble that he's been giving, it's all a ploy. They use Rhino to make a massive distraction so the rest of our crews can slip into the neighborhoods and kidnap people unnoticed. This revelation sends Peter into a blind fury. He drops the driver and heads straight to the Alchemex facility to hunt down Rhino once and for all. But he wasn't alone. Miles was actually standing right there the whole time. Utilizing his newly discovered camouflage ability, an invisible Miles was listening in on the entire brutal interrogation. Shocked by what he heard and worried about what Spider-Man might do, Miles follows him straight into the heart of Alchemex. Peter tears the Alchemex facility apart, completely consumed by the symbiote's rage. He forces Rhino into a brutal rematch, completely overpowering the Titan and pinning him down, fully prepared to take his life. Seeing his personal hero on the verge of murder, Miles steps in onto the battlefield in his makeshift spider suit and custom web shooters to shield Rhino. In the heat of the fight, Miles has discovered his high voltage Venom Strike ability. Hey, with Miles desperately trying to fight off a feral black suited Spider-Man, should Felicia Hardy officially suit up as Black Cat in the final battle to help Miles pull Spider-Man back from that edge? Drop your thoughts right now in the comments. Ultimately, Miles lands a desperate Venom Strike. The electrical shock shorts out the alien's control, giving Peter just enough mental clarity to realize the monster he's becoming. He violently tears the symbiote suit off of his body, blacks out, and finally puts an ending to the nightmare. We cut to the aftermath in Peter's room. Peter wakes up exhausted but safe, with Miles and Felicia by his side. The emotional dust settles and Peter looks at Miles with genuine respect. Thanks for saving me, Miles. It took a lot of guts for you to do what you did. I guess you proved me wrong. You can be a better Spider-Man than me. And if you want, I can help you. Show you the ways of the web. Miles smiles but completely jumps at the offer. Absolutely, I would love to learn to be a Spider-Man like you. Peter looks at him dead serious and doubles down. Hey man, you could probably be even better than me. In that moment, Felicia also adds in, saying that if he ever needs somebody to talk to, that she's still there, further solidifying their bond and connection that they deeply gained over the course of this movie. As part of the start of the end credits is when we see maybe a montage of images showing Peter training Miles on how to be Spider-Man. Maybe we even see potential suits for upcoming movies as part of that montage. But then we get a post-credit scene. There's a knock at the door. Peter walks over and opens it, and standing on the doorstep is MJ. She has that awkward, vulnerable smile on her face, completely ready to finally talk and mend things after ghosting him at the end of movie 5. But before Peter can say a word, MJ looks past his shoulder and she sees Felicia Hardy standing right there in Peter's room. All three of them freeze in a silent, jaw-dropping look as Peter stands there, dead center in the ultimate comic book love triangle. My final thought to you guys, should this truly be the real MJ returning, ready to heal? Or could this awkward reunion secretly be the sinister trigger for an MCU clone saga, after this trilogy wraps up? And what about the symbiote itself? Peter tore it off of his body, but is it completely destroyed? Or does it slip away into the shadows to find a brand new host? Could we eventually see a massive MCU return for a character like Flash Thompson to finally give us an Agent Venom down the line? Drop your absolute wildest theories in the comments, smash the like button, and subscribe for the next chapter. I'll see you there.